تعلمنا وزدنا ربك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So inshallah ta'ala we're going to keep this class as brief as humanly possible. We have 40 hadith and inshallah we're just going to go through them as I say in Arabic, murur al-kiram, just passing by inshallah ta'ala. So please, it's essential that you all buy copies of this book. It's a very beautiful book. It has very beautiful, good translation, a good commentary. It's very short, and so it's a very essential. Please make sure that you order the book. Buy 2 copies. Give a copy to somebody else. Right? Knowledge only continues by keeping the system working. So it's very important to do that. Okay, so let's look at our first hadith, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It says عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل شهر رمضان فتحت أبواب السماء وفي رواية فتحت أبواب الجنة وغلقت أبواب جهنم وسلسلة الشياطين وفي رواية فتحت أبواب الرحمة رواه الشيخان. So this hadith noted by Bukhari Muslim. It says that Abu Hurairah, may Allah be all pleased with him, said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, when Ramadan begins, the doors of the sky, or in another version, the doors of mercy. It mentions Abwab as-Sama', the heavens, that means the place above us, or Abwab al-Jannah, or the doors of paradise, or the doors of mercy. So how is it possible that it's all of these things? Because they're all interconnected. Right? They're all interconnected. There is some kind of physio-spiritual connection between the sky and our deeds. Our deeds are raised up, and these things lead to Jannah, and these things lead to mercy. And in another narration, it mentions the devils are shackled up, and the ulama, they mention this is in a general sense. There are exceptions to that. In that we see shayateen walking around, right? We see human shayateen. So there are exceptions to that. However, if we have to understand that generally we have to deal with 2 kind of negative impulses. One, our own ego and our own stubborn nafs that just wants things, whether they're halal or haram. And then there's evil stimulus from external sources, meaning the devils themselves, shaitan, and the devils around us, like the beloved phone and the beloved screen, and people around us who are encouraging us to turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are fasting, usually what happens then is the devils of the screen are less, and the devils of bad company are less, and we are usually just dealing with our nafs. And it's a very good training period to see, oh, this is just how I am, right? This is my own nafs. So there's less noise, so to speak, and less evil thoughts, and we're just dealing with how you are. And say, oh, and then you're also, by fasting, you are opposing your nafs. You're saying, oh, you can't do that. You're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. And so it's a really, really good, clear and clean and easy, so to speak. Not easy in that it's easy, but it's clearer. Like it's a task that's easier to deal with, to see exactly what's going on, as opposed to normally there's just so much static. It's kind of it's sometimes hard to find out what is my nafs, what is my ego, what is this, what is that. Right? But the condition here then is we have to turn the shayateen off. So somebody, as we'll see, somebody who spends the whole day in front of the screen, and then accidentally sees this and accidentally sees that, and or surrounds themselves with bad company, or they're watching TV the whole day and accidentally sees this and accidentally sees that, or intentionally sees all sorts of things that they shouldn't be seeing, then this person is surrounding themselves intentionally with shayateen. May Allah protect us. So this is a huge opportunity, um, to do to change as a person, to find out what's going on with ourselves as a person, and to indicate to get lots and lots of good deeds with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عن سهل بن سعد رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الجنة 8 أبواب فيها باب يسمى الريان لا يدخله إلا الصائمون رواه الشيخان. So Sahl ibn Sa'ad al-Sa'adi radiallahu anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said there are 8 gates to heaven. One of them is called the quenched, ar-Rayyan. Right? The quenched means somebody who, Rayyan means you've drank enough to now you've you're not thirsty anymore. Right? Person so it's called ar-Rayyan, and it's called that obviously because the person who enters it will feel like that. Right? And Rayyan, like the word Ramadan is slightly different, but Rayyan, like the word Ghabban and Haznan and what else? Za'lan. These are adjectives that indicate fullness and overcomingness. So you say somebody is a ghadib, he's upset or he's angry, but somebody who's a ghabban, he's overcome with anger, right? Somebody who is hazin, they're like sad. Somebody who is haznan, this person is overcome with sorrow, right? So like ar-Rahman, the merciful, he's full of mercy, right? So this person is like fully quenched, overcome by that thing. And so one of these gates of paradise then is specifically dedicated to saying no to yourself. This is a particular skill, right? A particular skill. About a few months ago, I was talking to a former MMA fighter, somebody who used to do MMA. He said doing MMA, mixed martial arts, is very, very difficult because you have to have a trainer for every single skill involved. So you have to have an exercise trainer and a weights trainer, and then a grappling trainer, and then this and that. There's a lot of skills because you're actually fighting. It's not just a fake thing. So life is like MMA, right? It's like mixed martial arts. You have all these different things in life that you have to do. Lots of different hats you have to wear, and lots of different things you need in order to be a complete Muslim. And one of these things then is what? Is um being able to say no to yourself. Like, can you put the phone down? Can you say no to chocolate? Can you say no to speaking? Right? Can you say no to food? Can you say no to drinking? Right? Can you control yourself? So self-control, these are major things. And so this is one of these key doors to Jannah, saying no to yourself and building that ability to self-control. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه ومن قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه وفي رواية ومن قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. So Abu Hurairah narrates that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, whoever fasts in Ramadan with true faith and devotion. So ihtisaban means that you're doing it for the sake of Allah. You're not doing it because people tell you to do it. His prior sins, meaning one's minor sins, will be forgiven. All the small mistakes that you did in the past that you forgot about, or that these kind of things will be overlooked. As opposed to major sins, you have to make genuine tawbah. So this is what we have to do every single day, in the morning, in the evening. Look at one's past, every single thing that you ever did in your life. Say, oh Allah, please forgive me. Start from scratch, make tawbah. And then when you go forward and you do good deeds like fasting Ramadan, it is now sealed, it's now done and dusted. And whoever stands on Laylatul Qadr, or another version mentions whoever stands in Ramadan, right? So praying in Ramadan or praying on Laylatul Qadr, this is again a very, very, very special thing, right? And notice it's called qama, it's called standing. right? Because when you stand, you recite Quran. So reciting Quran, and when you stand, it's not very comfortable. When you stand for a long time, it's not very comfortable. So it's normal and expected that we cannot do. And I remember talking to one of my teachers who is a hafiz of the Quran and an abid, someone who does lots of ibadah, and somebody who, he memorized the 10 qira'at, etc. And a real zahid in that he doesn't care about the dunya at all. And I was asking him about, praying, reciting Quran during the day. He says, well, it's quite difficult to do that, isn't it? Meaning you have things to do. So you can't recite that much Quran. But it's very sad and very depressing and very unfortunate when we look at our whole life and our whole week. And there's no time at all in the whole week, day or night, when we ever stand in prayer. Like we actually recite Quran, right? So if you know, for example, a page, if you know the last, I don't know, 6 surahs of the Quran, if you know the last juz of the Quran, if you know more than juz, then the wajib that's on us is to the obligation upon us is to recite it, right? You can't do tahajjud because you're too tired. Okay, do it during the day. Can't do it during the day because I'm busy. Okay, do it on a Saturday. Can't do Saturday. Can't do Sunday. You can't do ever. There's no time you can ever do Quran ever. That's very sad, right? That's very sad indeed, right? And so we need to have certain times. And so Ramadan, we like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can stand in prayer. I can stand in prayer for some time. Um, you know, and actually recite Quran for some period of time. So this tells us of that importance, and this is then to kickstart our relationship with the Quran. So yes, I need to have certain times in the day or week that I actually do these things, and I actually stand and recite Quran, and particularly in Ramadan, and particularly in Laylatul Qadr. And so, how do you find Laylatul Qadr? You make an azam, you make a resolve to always pray tahajjud, right? Particularly if you're a woman and you don't go to the masjid, it's easier because you don't have to wait for prayer to come in. So you look at the time for Fajr and you look at the time for Fajr and you say, okay, 10 minutes before Fajr, you wake up and pray 2 rak'ahs, right? And then do istighfar. وَالْمُسْتَغْفِرِينَ بِالْأَسْحَارِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, and especially those people who do istighfar just before Fajr, right? Especially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned those specifically. So you wake up 10 minutes before Fajr, make wudu quickly, pray 2 rak'ahs and say, oh Allah, please forgive me, and Allah give me this and give me this and give me this and give me this. And Allah loves to be asked and He does not like not to be asked. Right? And so this is something that we should have a resolve to do. And if you pray it every single day, and if you miss it because you're sick, you miss it because you're traveling, the angels will do it for you. And then you will find Laylatul Qadr. Because Laylatul Qadr is not known. We don't know exactly when Laylatul Qadr is. It is usually in Ramadan, and it's usually in the last 10 days of Ramadan, and it's usually on the odd nights, and it's usually, um, yeah, that's about as much as we know. So it could be 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th. Right? We don't know exactly when it is. So that's why we have a resolve to late Ramadan, right, to dedicate ourselves and actually do some Quran and do this every night. Right, the sign of an exception of a good deeds being accepted is that you have tawfiq to keep doing them. Right, so it's not just throw in everything in Ramadan and then give up. Rather, Ramadan is a chance to rejuvenate ourselves and start again. And needless to say, the most important thing for us to do is to do our fard, right? So somebody who has qadars, they say, oh, I have years of qadars to do, or I have, then what? This is the best time to do it, Ramadan, right? حديث number 4. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل عمل ابن آدم يضاعف الحسنة الحسنة عشر أمثالها إلى 700 ضعف. قال الله عز وجل إلا الصوم فإنه لي وأنا أجزي به يدع شهوته وطعامه من أجلي للصائم فرحتان فرحة عند فطره وفرحة عند لقاء ربه ولا خلوف فيه أطيب عند الله من ريح المسك والصيام جنة إذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم فلا يرفث ولا يسخب فإن سابه أحد أو قاتله فليقل إن امرؤ صائم. رواه الشيخان. So Abu Hurairah reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, um, every good deed of the children of Adam will be multiplied between 10 to 700 times, based on one's ikhlas, one's sincerity, right? The quality of one's intention, the reason why one's doing what one's doing, right? So you have a heart more, it's harder, there's more sincerity, there's more love in it, there's more fear in it, there's more gentleness in it, there's more whatever it is in it. It gets from 10 to 20 to 100, etc. Hundreds and hundreds multiple times. And also the place and the time, right? Being good to elders, being good to your parents, it's not the same, right? Parents we have more reward. The Almighty has said, except for fasting. Fasting is something very, very special. It is mine. It is something that's connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a personal act because you are personally giving up things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're taking away from your nafs for Him. And I will reward it, or another translation, I will be its reward. Right? When you turn away from the dunya, you get Allah. If you don't turn away from the dunya, you don't get Allah. Right? وما جعل الله في قلبي من قلبين فيما جعل الله من قلبين في تبس وما جعل الله في رجل من قلبين في جوفه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never put two hearts in one person. So when you turn to the dunya, you love the car, you love the donut, you love the academic success, you love math, you love whatever it is that you love, then there's no space for Allah. And if you have Allah in your heart, there's no space for anything else, right? And so this is the nature of the heart. And so when you turn away from the dunya, you turn to Allah. When you turn away from Allah, you turn to the dunya. Right? There's only one thing you can have there. So it's something it's a personal. Allah takes it personally, right? Allah is ghayur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is jealous. Not in the jealous that our jealousy is from a weakness. We need other people, and so we feel hurt and when we need them. Allah doesn't need us, but He is ghayur in that He is the greatest thing for us. Whenever He sees our hearts turning to anything other than Him, then He becomes angry and doesn't like it. Right? He is ghayur. Right? And so a fasting person has two joys. One, when he breaks his fast, and his joy then is not the joy of the food, but the joy of the food through Allah. Right? So it's very, very different. So through zuhud, through turning away from the dunya, we connect to Allah. And then we can reconnect to the dunya through Allah. What does that mean? It means that you don't look at the sunset because it's beautiful. You look at the sunset vis-a-vis in respect to it being a creation of Allah. Right? So I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my daughter got a toy. Okay? And I don't even like the toy. Okay? I don't like the toy. So my heart is not attached to the toy. Okay? However, I like the toy because it made my daughter happy. So is my heart attached to the toy, or is my heart attached to the happiness of my daughter? Right? So the same thing. Right? The same thing. So here is a car. This cool car will be the reason why this young man will memorize the Quran, because he really wants to memorize the Quran. And his dad told him, I will buy you this car if you memorize the Quran. So now, from the point of view of it being a means, he likes it. Right? And so when you look at food and you see it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say this is looking at from the point of view as the grace of Allah, then it is not dunya, it's ibadah. Right? Like Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salam, right? The Prophet, he was once bathing and he had his clothes to the side of him, and a swarm of locusts came, right? A swarm of locusts came, and they were made out of gold, right? Giant grasshoppers made out of gold. And he started collecting them. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, hey, well, you are a prophet, why are you collecting gold? He said, لا غنى لي عن فضلك. He says, I am not free of need of your grace. So there's somebody looking at the gold from the point of view that it's gold. The other one point looking at it from the point of view that it's Allah's grace. Very different. So now you connect with the dunya in a healthy way. You eat in a healthy way, right? You enjoy the dunya in a healthy way, in a way that is Allah-centric as opposed to food-centric or fame-centric. You want power in order for the sake of Allah to do something good for the sake of Allah. You want money in order to do something for the sake of Allah as opposed to you want money itself. You don't savor the taste of money, power, food, or whatever it is, but rather you savor the taste of that thing, of its connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he then rejoices at that. And then what's the acid test? How much do you eat? To say, oh, I'm eating for the sake of Allah. Okay, 1 donut, mashallah. 2 donuts, mashallah. 3 donuts, 8 donuts. You ate 8 donuts for the sake of Allah, honestly. That's a lie, right? So when you do something for the sake of Allah, it's halal. When you do something, when you enjoy the dunya for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's halal, it's this moderation. You don't really want it. You're not also too picky. Oh, there's too much salt. There's not too much salt. It's not cooked. It's like you don't really care. You're really not there, right? Just like my relationship to my daughter's toy. It doesn't really, if you flipped it with another toy, as long as she's still happy, it's fine. Same thing. As long as Allah's happy with you, as long as it's part of that general, universal Allah-centric feeling, you don't really care about the details. But when you start getting into the details, right? And attached to that thing and you keep wanting more and you can't say no to it, you know you're attached to it and you're not attached to Allah. And the breath, i.e. the bad odor, the fact that something bad, the badness that comes with the fast, the hunger that you have, the fatigue that you have, right? Of the fasting person is more fragrant to Allah than musk. Allah loves that, so you shouldn't change it. And fasting is a shield. It will protect you, right? But don't break that shield by doing things you shouldn't do. So whenever you when one of you fasts, stay away from obscene chatter, right? So a rafath specifically usually means to do with sexual things, right? So obviously it could be in the total haram, talking sexually to somebody who's haram for that person, or even in something that is usually halal for one's spouse, but that would be haram while you're fasting. An argumentation, right? La yaskhab, should not raise his voice, right? And so it's a time to speak without nafs. So before you speak, why am I speaking? Am I speaking because I'm angry? Don't speak. Am I speaking because I'm trying to want something? Don't speak. If I'm speaking for the sake of Allah, then speak, right? And if somebody starts to stir one up, then if someone insults him or argues him, then let him say, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. And so what should we do then if you get into an argument while you're fasting? Okay, you make tawbah and you make it up, right? But this is a time to learn how to get out of these situations, right? Same thing, and so we have another class, we don't have time to talk about it here, another class by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali on the spirit of fasting, the different levels of fasting, right? And so there's level number 1 is you don't eat and drink, etc. Level number 2 is you don't eat and drink and you avoid physical haram things. And level 3 is you don't eat and you don't drink and you avoid physical haram things and spiritual haram things. For example, grudges. Oh my God, why does my mum always take me shopping just before Maghrib? I really don't like my mum. She's really annoying. So you had a whole riba, chat going on in your head, right? Which breaks the fast on that level, right? You don't have to do qada literally, but you're not fasting properly, right? I hate my life. Why is it so bad? Why does everyone else have a way better life than I do? Right? These kind of thoughts like that. So a thought comes in, you push it away, but a thought comes in and you grab hold of it in your mind. Now it's yours, right? That's your thought now. And then the higher level is to fast from other than Allah. You're focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Fajr until Maghrib. So there's a long discussion here. That's why you should buy the book, read the but these shields are very important. Prayer is a shield, right? But we should not um, we should not we should not what's it called break these shields or throw away these shields by doing things. We have to shield ourselves from bad company. We have to shield ourselves from bad screens. We have to shield ourselves from many things, right? And bad company is basically the worst you can have, right? And so the screen by default is bad company. Right? That is the nature of it. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا كان أول ليلة من شهر رمضان صفدت الشياطين ومردت الجن وغلقت أبواب النار فلم تفتح منها باب وفتحت أبواب الجنة فلم يغلق منها باب وينادي مناد يا باغي الخير أقبل ويا باغي الشر أقصر والله ولله عتقاء من النار وذلك كل ليلة. Um, so Abu Hurairah narrated the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, on the first night of Ramadan, the devils and rebellious jinn are shackled in a general sense, as you mentioned. The gates of hell are closed such that not a single one remains open. It's harder to sin. And the gates of heaven are opened. So this is heaven meaning al-Jannah. That's the word here. Jannah, paradise. Are opened such that not a single one remains closed. So it becomes easier to do good deeds. And a voice will call out and say, O seeker of good, come close, and O seeker of evil, stop, halt. And Allah frees people from the fire, i.e. people that should be going to hell when they die. And that happens every single night. So it's a huge um, right. Here's a nice quote here from the book, The Spite of the Book is a Gem. It says, once an ascetic, somebody who was a zahid, he turned away from the dunya totally, was roaming in a jungle when he stumbled upon the devil by chance. Surprised to see the devil idle there, he wasn't doing anything. The itinerant man who was traveling around, asked him, do you not have people to misguide? The devil let out a sly grin and said, why would I work when people's desires have overcome them? Right? If I have an iPhone, if people have iPhones, why do I even need to work? Just go on holiday. It's not a big deal. It's already doing, it's already doing making sure people do enough haram anyway. Right? So we should be careful, and we should make sure that we don't embarrass ourselves too much. May Allah forgive us all. Right? Is that sometimes, like, subhanallah, without any work we're still messing up. May Allah forgive us. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أتاكم شهر أتاكم رمضان شهر مبارك فرض الله عز وجل عليكم صيامه تفتح فيه أبواب السماء وتغلق فيه أبواب الجحيم وتغل فيه مردة الشياطين ولله فيه ليلة خير من ألف شهر من حرم خيرها فقد حرم. So Abu Huraira narrated the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, Ramadan has come to you, a blessed month, whose fasts or whose fasting Allah has made obligatory upon you. In this month, the doors of the skies are opened, and the gates of hell are closed, and the malevolent devils are locked within. Allah has placed a night therein, which when is it that we don't know. Therefore, we make the resolve every single day from now on. Make sure that we are making dua, which is better than 1,000 months. Whoever is deprived of it has undoubtedly been deprived. And Sa'id al-Musayyab, the great Mufti and Qadi of Medina, the son-in-law of Abu Huraira, he said, whoever prays Isha in the masjid, that they've had their portion of Laylatul Qadr. Right? So praying Fajr and Isha in the masjid are extremely, extremely important. Right? So, you know, this is every day, of course, but particularly in Ramadan. So a big mistake is people, for example, they go to do they will go for iftar in the masjid and then leave and come back later on during Taraweeh. It's a big mistake because the most important prayer is Isha and Fajr in the masjid. So these are very important. وعن عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الصيام والقرآن يشفعان للعبد يقول الصيام أي ربي إني منعته الطعام والشهوات بالنهار فشفعني فيه والقرآن يقول منعته النوم بالليل فشفعني فيه فيشفعان رواه البيهقي في شعب الإيمان. So Abdullah ibn Amr narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, and so between Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As and his father Amr ibn As, the age gap was 10 years. Possibly 11 years. So the age gap, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, his dad was 10 years older than him. So how old was he when he got married? If your dad is 10 years older than you, yeah, 9 or 10. And the Prophet ﷺ said in a weak hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, in order to have said that any man who has a daughter who is 12, reaches the age of 12, and then he doesn't marry her off, then if she does something shameful, he should only blame himself, right? And so one of the key things in Ramadan is lowering the gaze. That's obviously that's always the case. Lowering the gaze is a very important thing. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ya ma'ashara shabab man istata'a minkum al-ba'ata falyatazawwaj." Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Whichever of you, O youth, whichever of you is able to get married, then let him get married." Right? And so we live in a time of bid'ah, in a time of blameworthy innovation, where marriage is always delayed. Marriage is always delayed, right? And that's not good. It's not, it's like just like the Prophet ﷺ forbade us to do wisal. Wisal is you keep fasting and 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 fasting. You're not supposed to do that, are you? You're supposed to break your fast as soon as possible, right? So as soon as it's possible to get married, you should get married, right? But we live in a world where everything is impossible, right? We make everything impossible. We make 1,000 barriers to the halal and 1,000 doors open to the haram, right? And this person is fasting, and sometimes their mind's going off into crazy directions, and it's like, well, you know, um, there's practical means to remove these problems, right? Just like, I'm trying to pray Maghrib, right? I'm trying to pray Maghrib and I can't focus. Should I do iftar or should I pray Maghrib? And you're supposed to do iftar first, right? So you're supposed to remove the obstacle so then you can focus on prayer, right? It's narrated, Wallahu alam, is it true or not, that Abdullah ibn Umar, this is the Zahid, right? This is Abdullah ibn Umar who said, be in the dunya as just a travel, as who narrated from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, be in the dunya as if he's just a traveler or someone passing by. I didn't care about the dunya at all, Ibn Umar, right? This is the Ibn Umar who told Mujahid, when you wake up in the morning, don't assume you'll be awake in the evening, right? And Zuhud. So this is the same Ibn Umar. What would he do? Is that he would seldom break his fast with anything other than one of his wives or concubines. Like that's how he would do iftar. So this is the same Ibn Umar who was totally unattached to dunya. He would take the halal means to remove the dunya from his heart so that he can focus on prayer. Right? So the issue then today is, oh, that's not possible because of this, that's not possible because of this, that's not possible because of this. It's not possible because we make it impossible. It's not possible because we make the halal impossible and we make the haram very possible, right? If a teenager goes and asks their parents for an iPhone, they say yes. When they ask them to get married, they say no. It's the opposite. It's the opposite, right? Okay, so it says, Abdullah ibn Amr, he says, fasting, and the Quran will intercede for a fasting. Fasting will say, "O Lord, I prevented him from food and desires during the day, so let me intercede for him." And the Quran will say, "O Lord, I prevented him from sleeping during the night, so let me intercede for him." Thus, the intercession will be accepted. Right, in this hadith, Allahu Alam, is it sahih or not? It's in Shu'ab al-Iman by Imam Bayhaqi. There's a hadith to do with general encouragement about how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu A'lam whether or not it's sahih. وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنهما قال دخل رمضان فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن هذا الشهر قد حضركم وفيه ليلة خير من ألف شهر من حرمها فقد حرم الخير كله ولا يحرم خيره إلا محروم. So Anas ibn Malik reported that that Ramadan began, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "This month has come to you, and it contains a night that is better than 1,000 months. Whoever is deprived of it, i.e., of finding Laylatul Qadr, has been deprived of all good, and none will be deprived of its good except the utterly unfortunate." So when does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bar people from good? When we wrong other people. Right? When we wrong other people. So you should be very, very careful. In our minds, we always think about sunnahs and Laylatul Qadr and doing Quran. That's from the shaitan in reality. So I thought it's from the hadith. So yeah, but the shaitan is using the hadith. Okay, well, how? Because taqwa is your number one thing. Taqwa means avoiding the haram and making sure you're doing the obligatory. So the number one thing we need to think about right now and in Ramadan is, what has Allah made obligatory on me and what has Allah made haram for me. And so what happens is this person continues to persist in the haram or continues to harm other people in their family, at work, or whatever it is in life. They keep doing the haram, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds back spiritual progress from them. They can't go anywhere because they keep harming other people. Right? And so this is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops that person finding Laylatul Qadr. So what is a question, every single one of us, right now, what is Allah asking me to do? What is it that I'm doing right now that Allah is asking me to do and I'm not doing it? Right? What is Allah telling me not to do that I am doing? عن سلمان الفارسي رضي الله عنه قال خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في آخر يوم من شعبان فقال يا أيها الناس قد أظلكم شهر عظيم شهر مبارك شهر فيه ليلة خير من ألف شهر جعل الله تعالى صيامه فريضة وقيام ليله تطوعا من تقرب فيه بخصلة من الخير كان كمن أدى فريضة فيما سواه ومن أدى فريضة فيه كان كمن أدى 70 فريضة فيما سواه وهو شهر الصبر والصبر ثوابه الجنة وشهر المواساة وشهر يزاد فيه الرزق المؤمن من فطر فيه صائما كان له مغفرة لذنوبه وعتق رقبة من النار وكان له مثل أجره من غير أن ينقص من أجره شيء. قلنا يا رسول الله ليس كلنا نجد ما نفطر به الصائم. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يعطي الله هذا الثواب من فطر صائما على مذقة لبن أو تمرة أو شربة من ماء ومن أشبع صائما سقاه الله من حوض شربة لا يظمأ حتى يدخل الجنة وهو شهر أوله رحمة وأوسطه مغفرة وآخره عتق من النار من خفف عن مملوكه فيه غفر الله له وأعتقه من النار. رواه بيهقي في شعب الإيمان. So again, hadith, Allahu Alam, is it sahih or not? But the point is true. It says, Salman al-Farisi reported that one day on the last day of Sha'ban, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ delivered a sermon saying, O people, a great month has dawned upon you, a noble month, a month that contains within it a night that is better than 1,000 months. Allah Almighty made its fast compulsory and standing in its night optional. He who does a voluntary deed in this month shall be like the one who fulfilled an obligatory act in other months. He who fulfills an obligatory act in this month shall be like the one who fulfilled 70 obligatory acts in other months. So the fard is very important. So someone's like, oh, I can't pray Taraweeh because I have qada prayers. That's fine. You're getting lots of good deeds anyway. Not a problem. You're getting more. Somebody who's standing there in the masjid doing qadas has more reward than somebody who's doing the sunnah, because the fard has more reward than the sunnah. It is the month of patience, and the reward for patience is paradise. It is the month of mercy. It is the month in which the believer's sustenance is increased. Allah gives you more rizq, right? So you should be more generous, right, with your money, and more generous with your family. He who feeds a fasting person shall have his sins forgiven and freedom from the fire. So again, this is a classic thing. We have to do. Let's make sure I do an iftar because everyone else is doing iftar. Okay, how much is iftar going to cost you? Oh, $500. Do you have $500? No, but I can borrow it. What are you supposed to be paying off? Oh, your credit card with interest on it. You're supposed to be paying that off, correct? Yes. So why are you spending any extra money then? Oh, because it's the month of Rahmah and the month of generosity. So the person puts generosity, which is sunnah, over the fard, which is to get out of interest as soon as humanly possible. So if somebody who's in interest, what should they be doing in Ramadan? They should fast their fard, do their fard prayers, and do their fast, and just drive Uber or whatever they have to do in order to pay it off. Find their third job and just work like an insane person for the next till they die. Right? They just need to get out of interest as soon as humanly possible. So the problem is Shaitan tells us do sunnahs. It's really important. It's true. Sunnahs after the fard. But a sunnah that takes the place of the fard is, what's that called? A sunnah that blocks out the fard and stops you doing the obligation. What do we call that? It's called haram, right? When you do a sunnah that stops you doing that wajib, the obligatory, is haram. So, and Allah hates it, and Allah hates you doing it. So why are you doing it? Right? It's gratifying to be generous. It's gratifying to have got lots of brownie points during Ramadan or other times, but it's not about gratifying. It's about what Allah wants you to do. Right? It's not about living life through other people's eyes, or living life through the drama of the online class that you just listened to, or the drama of the khutbah you just heard. It's like, I'm going to stand before Allah tomorrow. What is Allah going to ask me about? Make a list. These are the things Allah is going to ask you. If you don't know what those things are, that's why you study fiqh. Fiqh tells you what are the things Allah is going to ask you about. And so it's very important. He who feeds a fasting person shall have his sins forgiven and freedom from the fire. He will receive a reward similar to that of the fasting person without any decrease in that. Right? And so Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, he mentions that why is that the case? He says because in the past people didn't used to work during Ramadan. So people didn't have an income. They just said, that's it. I don't have an income during Ramadan. That's it. And so you are the means that allows them to fast. You keep them going. So that's why you get the reward, right? And, one has to ask the question, feeding people in the West, do we really need to feed people in the West, right? So it's not like people don't have food, is it? So there's people who are literally starving and there's other people who are not starving. So, I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm saying we might want to consider doing that. Just say, you know what, let's feed people who actually need food. The companion said, "O Messenger of Allah, not all of us have something to feed the poor. We don't have any money, right?" So then the Prophet ﷺ said, "That's okay. Just steal it." He didn't say that, did he? Right. So the Prophet ﷺ replied, "Allah also grants this reward to one who gives a date, a sip of water, or a draught of milk." And I believe this is in reality like mixed. It's not milk. It's Leban is liquid yogurt, right? And whoever gives a drink to a fasting person, Allah will give him a drink from my fountain, after which he will not experience any thirst until he enters paradise, right? I.e., and will not be thirsty in paradise either. It is a month whose first part is mercy, in the middle of it is forgiveness, and the last is salvation from hell. He who lightens the burden of his slave in this month, Allah will forgive him and free him from hellfire. So being good to other people, right? So the worst thing generally you can ever do is be bad to other people, and the best thing you can generally do ever is being good to other people. And just try and fit one more hadith. So, classic thing, criticizing your wife for not making the iftar ready on time. Having an argument with your husband or wife during Ramadan, pretty stupid thing to do. May Allah forgive us all. Right? There's a time to just be chill. Oh, but they will say this. They invited us, we're going to invite them. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. That's called keeping up with the Joneses. That's not called Islam. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال دخل رمضان فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن هذا الشهر قد حضركم وفيه ليلة خير من ألف شهر من حرمها فقد حرم الخير كله ولا يحرم خيرها إلا محروم. Did I skip a hadith? Aha, I see. There's a typo here this way. So what they did is this hadith has come twice, but it's not the right hadith. This hadith has come twice. Where is it? This hadith, the same hadith as number 8. But it's a different hadith in reality. So that's not the hadith that's translated here. Hadith here says, when the month of Ramadan began, the Messenger of Allah SAW would free every prisoner and give alms to every beggar. Right, this is a totally different hadith. Right, so there's a typo there. Okay, so that's a key thing to think about is if you have money, I think how you're going to spend it. Spend it on people. Yeah. It's true this is a beta, but there are other means. There are other ways that things can happen. If we're creative and we're not stuck within our customs, then we can be more creative. My friend works 2, 3 jobs to pay off extra on mortgage, but will also feed the poor in Africa. I tell her to pay off the mortgage, but she says people are so poor there, so she doesn't. So is she doing haram? Yeah, she's doing the wrong thing. So if she has a haram mortgage, she should sell her house. That's what she should do. You have a haram mortgage, sell your house, give the money back, stop paying interest. Right? So if she has a halal mortgage, I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about somebody who's borrowed money from a credit card company, for example, and they're paying interest. Somebody who has a haram mortgage and they're paying interest. Just sell their house, sell their car, borrow money from every single person, work 20 jobs. That's what they should do. Do every single thing possible and impossible to get out of war with Allah. That's what they should do. Right? But people don't want to do that. They don't want to sell the house, right? I'll lose all the money. It doesn't matter. Like if you look at that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, what's Yawm al-Qiyamah? Yawm al-Qiyamah is the idea that everything's going to be destroyed, right? So you're buying a house that will be destroyed. Like we know that, right? This house will be destroyed. So it's not worth doing the haram, right? I know, but it's relative. When you say too high for what? Relative for what? Right? I live in California. It's ridiculous here, right? If I didn't own a house here in California, I think in 30 years, I'd pay something like, I don't know, $2 million of rent, or maybe a bit less than that. So of course I'm going to get, but you do it in a halal way. Otherwise, it's not too high. Too high is I can't do it, right? Too high is, so too high is like this. There are no houses for rent, period, zero at all. And if I didn't buy the interest house, which is available because the government is giving low interest loans, etc., then I would be living in the street. That's too high. That's what it means. Too high, right? Munira and Mustafa are here. They can tell you about, in difficulty, the levels of difficulty we did at school, right? Like what's the level of difficulty? So when you say it's too high, meaning I would die, I would live in the street. That's what we're talking about, right? As opposed to it, it doesn't make math sense. It's true. Charity doesn't make math sense either, does it? You just gave something away for no reason, right? May Allah forgive us all and may Allah protect us all. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك